You are listening to WTUZ Radio Podcast. Welcome to WTUZ Radio Podcast. I am your host, Rhonda. I know I haven't been on here for a while, fam. Been really busy. A lot of stuff going on. But with that said, as we are approaching the new year on this Gregorian calendar, I did want to give an update on what's going on behind the scenes with the economy. So this is an update on the series that we have been running for a couple of years, Gateway to a New Economy. All right, family. So you should have heard about the U.S. government averting yet another shutdown. They had one over in the summertime, I want to say June-ish. They just had another deadline that they were going to shut down November 17th. So I just kind of wanted to update you and also remind you of what is really going on. Okay. So if you want like really details and breakdown, if this is your first time listening, I highly encourage you to go back through our archives and look at Gateway to a New Economy. I think this is the third year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the second, I can't remember. And we're going into the third, but nonetheless, go back to the archives. It was predicted with accuracy what is shaking down, okay? And some of those predictions are still yet to come, but it is looking like they are lining up just like I said they would, okay? From the inflation, I told you all it was coming. I told you why it was coming. And now we are at the point where everybody in the U.S. understands the pain of inflation, okay? So this inflation deal, the government shutdown deal, or them averting shutdown, it is all connected, all right? So the latest thing, and we'll get into that a little bit, of how Congress, yet again, kicked the can down the road with funding the government, all right? So this has an effect, because it's all tied together, on other industries as well. Okay. So specifically, the banks are very closely, tightly rooted to the U.S. government. All right. Which is really a corporation, but I'll stay focused here. Okay. Because the Fed Reserve is really the big daddy of both. So meaning the banks as well as the U.S. government. Okay. The Federal Reserve is the one that finances and controls both the banks as well as the government. All right. So this is news that's coming out. JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America hit with negative rating outlooks as Moody's says U.S. government has weaker capacity to support big banks. Okay, so those of you that are not familiar with Moody's is a credit rating agency for governments as well as businesses, okay? So think of them like the Equifax and TransUnion, okay? Now, I also want to point out to the fam that in the 2008 crash, Moody's got a lot of negative feedback because they were giving these banks during that mortgage collapse. Okay, remember 2008 when everything collapsed and the U.S. government had to bail out the big banks? Well, credit agencies like Moody's, and I think Finch is the other one, which is Moody's counterpart. Okay, so again, they are the Equifax and the TransUnion for governments and businesses. Well, Moody's back in 2008, they didn't see no wrong with the banks being over leveraged or highly in debt. Okay? They saw no wrong. So they kept giving them a credit rating of AAA plus. Okay, that would be equivalent to individual credit ratings. Let's say you had a whole bunch of debt. Okay, your debt was 10 times that of your income. All right. But yet Equifax NIM rated your credit as 800, your credit score 800, 850. Huh? Really? So you just not going to look at that debt to income ratio. Okay. So that's equivalent what Moody's did in 2008. Okay. So now this time around, they are playing it safe and by the book. Okay. Well, it's by the book as they can, because child, they, these banking agencies never should have gotten back that good credit rating, but we'll digress. Okay, because I'm going to tell you, Equifax and them not about to give us no 800, 850 credit rating score when our debt to income ratio is off the charts. Okay, but all right, I'll try to stay focused. I just wanted to give you all a little bit of insight of who Moody's is and what their participation was in the 2008 financial crash. All right. So now they done set up and downgraded JP Morgan Chase. It's like one of the big players on the block of all in banks. Wells Fargo is second. And then Bank of America. Okay. So these are the top three dogs in banking. They have just downgraded their credit rating to negative. Okay, their outlook for them. That's huge. So 3 U.S. banking giants have just had their credit ratings downgraded to negative by Moody's. Moody's Investor Service downgraded JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America to negative ratings after previously classifying them as stable, Market Watch reports. Analyst Peter E. Nearby of Moody's said that the worsening outlook on bank debt was due to the potentially weaker capacity of the government of the U.S., the United States of America's AAA negative, to support the U.S. systematically important banks. Okay, so in other words, breaking it down to common folk language, child, the U.S. ain't got it. So, player, if you get in trouble as far as your financial situation is concerned, I ain't got it to give. I can't bail you out like that. Don't you understand? I just got my lights shut off and I had to put them in my mama name. So let's continue. In particular, JP Morgan's downgrade was partially because the bank runs a complex capital market business that may pose substantial risk to its creditors. A potential upgrade for JP Morgan would depend on sustaining strong and stable performance and capital levels above its competitors, Moody's says. Despite the downgrade from Moody's, all three bank stock prices are in the green for November so far. Okay, which I'm still not understanding that, but okay, whatever floats the boat of the illusions of this false economy. Because I don't understand how your debt to income ratio is several times over and you're just now getting a credit rating hit, but yet on the side of Wall Street, everything is well. Okay, so we're not going to look at fundamentals here. Okay, this is why it's important if you are dibbling and dabbing in stock market investments, all of this jazz, do additional research outside of mainstream media. And this also includes those financial programs that they put on via mainstream media. So MSNBC, NEM, CNBC, NEM, all of that. You have to do additional research to really, really, really understand what's going on and move accordingly. Okay? Because every time you follow the masses, you will lose your shirt. Okay? Now, of course, I am not trying to give you no financial advice. Far from it. Not trying to tell you what to do. Of course, all of this is my opinion, and I'm just looking at history. Okay? They're not going to tell you beforehand the housing market is crashing. Okay? They're not going to tell you beforehand the stock market is crashing. Okay? Once you start hearing those things, it's a done deal by that point. So get ready and consider yourself to already have lost your shirt. Now it's about how much of your shirt are you going to lose? Well, then you already lost your shirt. So are you going to lose your pants and your socks? And some people, their undies also. Okay? You have to do additional research to truly, truly see the health of this economy. Okay? I have been talking about this for years, that the picture that they were putting up on the U.S. economy was false. I told you why it was false, because of all the heavy borrowing from Big Daddy. I told you inflation was coming because of all the heavy borrowing from Big Daddy. I also told you that a certain event, okay, starts with the C, ends with the D, was also a cover for another huge collapse that is on the brink and an impending financial reset. Okay? So now we are seeing symptoms like there was before the 2008 crash. Okay? We're literally seeing all the same symptoms, but yet, again, you're not hearing these details in mainstream media. Okay? So pay attention to what's going on. All right? Okay, so the agency also said that the downgrade of the bank's ratings was in line with a previous downgrade of the U.S. sovereign credit rating, which was also bumped down from stable to negative. So again, baby, the U.S. ain't got it. So J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, which they already in trouble, baby, for scamming this, that, and the third, 4, 5, and 6. That's something separately. And Bank of America, U.S. ain't got it. Because they in the same boat as you. All right? In a research note released last quarter, Moody's said that U.S. banks were facing significant risk of deposit flight due to interest rates and asset liability management risk. Moody's, which controls 80% of the global ratings industry, along with Standards and Poor's, I forgot about S&P, Standards and Poor's, is forecasting a recession for the U.S. economy early next year. And what I am telling you, we've been in a recession. We've been there. I'm going to back it up all the way to when the crisis happened. Was it 3 years ago? 3 years ago. You know, that crisis that starts with a C, ends with a D. And it has a V in there. We were in recession then. Okay? All right. So we continue to expect a mild recession in early 2024. And given the funding strains on the U.S. banking sector, there will likely be a tightening of credit conditions and rising loan losses for U.S. banks. Huh? Tightening of credit? Loan losses for U.S. banks? That sounds like 2008 again to me. Okay? All right. Let's continue. So the other side of this is, of course, the U.S. corporation. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. The U.S. government. Baby, they ain't got it either because their credit rating done took a hit also. Moody's turns negative on U.S. credit ratings. Okay. And I don't think I'm going to read all of this. I just want to get some of the highlights. This was on November 10th. Moody's on Friday lowered its outlook on the U.S. credit ratings to negative from stable, citing large fiscal deficits and a decline in debt affordability, a move that drew immediate criticism from President Biden's administration. Okay, because remember, those of you that's been rocking with us as we've been doing the series, Gateway to a New Economy, I told you how much money they had borrowed from Big Daddy. You know, that's the Federal Reserve now. How much money they had borrowed from him. And the points they have to pay back on said borrowed money. And every time they keep borrowing, that weakens the value of the dollar. Okay? And the weakening of the value of the dollar that's called inflation. We talked about this. So now nobody should not understand what inflation is, because we're seeing it every day. Okay? You go to the grocery store, you know how it is. You're like, what? I ain't got nothing. What is $100, baby? I ain't. All I got is eggs, milk, bread, maybe a pack of chicken wings and some chicken legs. Maybe. This 100 only covering just regular stuff I need. This ain't going like deep grocery shopping to like totally fill the fridge and bundle stuff up and put it in the freezer. Everybody now should understand inflation, which means the basic definition of inflation is what your dollar used to get you now costs you $1.10. Okay, that's 10% inflation. Okay, so even the number of the percentage of inflation that they are telling us is still a watered down version, because the everyday common folk, when we go to the grocery store, we understand, or wherever, whether it's the grocery store, whether you go into the gas pump, whatever the case may be, once you go spend said dollars, you're seeing a minimum 10% uptick in prices, 20%, 30%, and in some cases, 40, 50%. Okay? So just said another way. If an apple costs 25 cents, you've been buying that apple for 25 cents, this, that, and the third, 4, 5, 6. You walk in the store, now it's 30 cents. What? That's a 5-cent inflation. So it's costing you more for the same apple. The apple ain't changed, baby. It's the same apple. Hyperinflation is that 25-cent apple now costs you 50 cents. Okay? That's inflation, family. We all should understand it now because we are all literally living it. Okay? Inflation is caused by the borrowing of money from the USA. Okay? The USA government, which is really a corporation. But we're going to stick to USA government. That's what causes inflation. All right? The move follows a rating downgrade of the sovereign by another rating agency, Fitch. Okay, I thought it was Fitch, but I didn't know about S&P. So it's really three, Fitch, S&P, and Moody's. All right, Fitch this year, which came after months of political brinksmanship around the U.S. debt ceiling. Federal spending and political polarization have been a rising concern for investors, contributing to a sell-off that took the U.S. government bond prices to their lowest levels in 16 years. Okay, so let's just real quick talk about these bonds. Okay, because the U.S. government at the federal level, they are not the only ones that sell bonds. Okay, they also do it at the local level. Okay, at the city and the county levels. That is a mechanism for these particular agencies to fund their spending or their debt. Okay, so y'all remember, okay, I'll put it on us Gen Xers because millennials, I don't know if you all were taught this, but us Gen Xers were taught, as well as the boomers, that a safe investment would always be bonds. Okay. So meaning, and the reason why it was always a safe investment was because, the U.S. government's not going to go broke. They pay their bills. It's a stable investment. Now, you're only going to get like 3%, and I may even be high on that. You may only get 3% return, but it's a steady return. Okay, so in other words, if you put in your $100, you're going to get your $100 and a couple of coins added to that $100 the longer you hold that particular bond investment. Okay, so with this news, the bond market is like, wait a minute, player. Your credit rate, you ain't got it like that. U.S. government, you ain't got it like that. So you got the lights in your mama name, and you coming to me wanting me to make investments with you. Player, how you finna pay me back? Because you can't pay your current bills. Your lights in your mother's name. So no, I'm not finna let you hold this $100. I don't care if I said I'm gonna let you hold $100 for 5 years, and then at the end of that 5 years, you're gonna give me back my $100 plus 3%. Baby, I don't trust that I'm even gonna get my $100 back, let alone the 3% added on top of it. Okay? So that's why people ain't trying to mess with bonds. Okay? It's hard to disagree with the rationale with no reasonable expectation for fiscal consolidation anytime soon, said Christopher Hodge, chief economist for the U.S. at Naxos. Deficits will remain large, and as interest costs take up a large share of the budget, the debt burden will continue to grow. Okay, so let's talk about this right quick on these interest costs. Let's go back to Big Daddy that loans the money, and he put points on the money. Think about points as interest rates. What has happened to interest rates recently? Yeah, that part. Okay. Not too long ago, and some people thought I was crazy when I said interest rates will rise. There will be inflation problems. They didn't see that because back then interest rates were at 3%. Okay. You could go get a home, get it financed at 3, 4, 5%. Okay. Bank to banks rates were, I think, like at 2%, 1%. Okay. Well, same thing with the U.S. government on the amount of interest rates they have to pay on the debt that they have borrowed. Okay. So that makes it more expensive to borrow money. The more you have to pay back. Right? Same exact concept. The rating agency said in a statement that continued political polarization in Congress raises the risk that lawmakers will not be able to reach consensus on fiscal plan to slow the decline in debt affordability. All right, now remember, we're talking about the U.S. corporation. So now hopefully you're making a connection on why J.P. Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America have been downgraded with their credit rating, because their particular mom and dad, the U.S. government, they can't bail them out because they ain't got it to give. Any type of significant policy response that we might be able to see to this declining fiscal strength probably won't happen until 2025 because of the reality of political calendar next year. A senior VP at Moody's told Reuters in an interview. Okay, because an election is coming up next year. So, they got to put on the dog and pony show, this, that, and the third, 4, 5, and 6. As the entire financial system in the U.S. has once again is collapsing to the level at a minimum of the 2008 housing bubble, which was really a worldwide economic crash. Okay. And they up here talking about some elections and then got the nerve to be talking about sending somebody else some doggone ends. All right. Sending other nations ends to help them out on 4, 5, and 6. And you can't even pay your light bill. And let's not mention letting other people come in your house. That's immigration. When you can't even feed your own children. Okay? So at a minimum, this is code right here telling you that the U.S. economy finna be total trash at least until 2025. Okay? Now, me personally, it would not surprise me if they use this particular impending crash, because that's exactly what's going to happen, as a U.S. presidential showdown. Okay, kind of reminds me of 2008. Remember when the economy was crashing and Obama was running, and who was it? McCain. And McCain. And they all had to meet behind closed doors, and Obama made it, they made it out like Obama was, the one on point, meeting with the Fed Reserve and the banks behind closed doors, 4, 5, and 6, and McCain didn't want to discuss it. So it would not surprise me if they try to run the same script and the same play in the 2024 presidential election. But I want y'all to remember this. This has nothing to do with the presidents. This don't have nothing to do with Biden running it in the ground. This has nothing to do with, the debt, a lot of debt being incurred under Trump. This was going to happen anyway because of the way the system / corporation is set up. Let's continue. Republicans who control the U.S. House of Representatives expect to release a stopgap spending measure on Saturday, aimed at averting a partial government shutdown by keeping federal agencies open when current funding expires next Friday. Okay, so that was on the 17th, fam. And that's exactly what they did. Okay. And I'll jump over on that in a second. Moody's is the last of the 3 major rating agencies to maintain a top rating for the U.S. government. Moody's, so y'all still on that bull S, okay? That's what got your behind handed to you in the 2008 crisis. Because Moody's, y'all, is the most known one. That would be like Equifax, hiding bad credit ratings. And then, you as the individual go in and you're still able to borrow money from these other companies, but your credit is straight up total trash. They can be like, well, but wait a minute though. I had checked Equifax now. So then they gonna be on Equifax's behind. Wait a minute, you knew they wasn't paying their bills, this, then the third, four, five, and six. So that's interesting. That Moody's still on the bull mess and was the last. Anyway, Fitch changed its rating from triple A minus to AA plus in August, joining S&P, which has had an double A plus rating since 2011. While it changed its outlook, indicating a downgrade is possible over the medium term, Moody's affirmed its long-term issuer and senior unsecured rating at AAA, citing U.S. credit and economic strengths. There go Moody's with the bull ass still. Immediately after Moody's release, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said the change was yet another consequence of congressional Republican extremism and dysfunction. Child, ain't nobody trying to hear that mess. Again, I'm going to tell you all, this has nothing to do with Democrat and Republican. They may want to tell you that. I'm telling you, it doesn't. This has everything to do with the corporation, my bad, government, the way they operate. Borrowing money that they can never pay back and passing it along as the debt of the American public. All right. Now, we've talked about this on the lives where I stated that if the public put on their thinking cap, they would wake up and shut all of this down immediately. Because, see, what you're not finna do is tell me something that's my debt. I need you to give me an itemized statement, player, on how this is my debt. Okay? Which is why when they come out with spending bills, we talked about this, slash budgets, that they don't want to itemize and list everything. All right? So again, player, you would have to tell me, how's this my debt? No, baby, this your debt. Show me where my signature is on that agreeing to any of that. Okay? So I'm going to say again, this has nothing to do with Democrat and Republican. It has everything to do with how the system works, how a government, it's really not a government, it is a corporation. And it is a badly managed corporation because they are using you as the folk that are on the hook for paying this back. So not only you, but your children and your children, which it can never be paid back. But when you get down to the nitty gritty and need an itemized account of how you and your babies and your babies' babies and their babies' are going to benefit or have benefited, it's crickets. Okay? While the statement by Moody's maintained the U.S. AAA rating, we disagree with the shift to a negative outlook. Moody's with the bull ass. Ain't nobody forget Moody's in 2008. You was still giving Countrywide them, Lehman Brothers them, these great credit ratings. When it was the opposite, they were upside down. You knew the amount of debt these people had on their books. You knew it. So you think that we forgot? Not those of us that are paying attention. We ain't forgot a doggone thing, baby. And now here you still with the doggone foolishness. Now the U.S. sitting up here with they lights and they mama name. And you fencing to tell me, you fencing to sit here and tell me that you're still reluctant to downgrade their credit rating? Yeah, that confirms for me that it's much, much, much worse than we think it is. Okay? In my opinion, it is a minimum 2008 level, if not worse. And I say worse because the amount of debt is worse. And the American public, once again, and shame on the American public, their debt ratio is off the charts, specifically just housing alone. Because a housing bubble was created yet again. Okay? So not only is it the housing, credit cards, they haven't been screaming about those as much. Okay, car loans, now they're talking about defaults in car loans. Student loan debt still remains a huge problem. What makes it worse this time is also now we're combating inflation. Okay? But yet you want to still sit up here and tell us you reluctant to give the U.S. and them a downgrade in their credit ratings. Baby, if you don't go somewhere. All right, so the American economy remains strong. Yeah. And Treasury securities are the world's preeminent, safe, and liquid asset. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wale, baby, I don't know your last name. I'm not going to butcher it. Said in a statement. Wale, baby, that's on you, sweetheart, because I wouldn't be getting up there putting my little name against the U.S. and them being stable and can pay their bills 4, 5, and 6. Baby, it wouldn't be me. So just remember that, because you know it's going to circle back around and you're going to get your behind handed to you. Okay? Because y'all sitting in these positions, you have to pay the price. Because you're supposed to be the experts and the watchers of this. So Moody's, y'all gonna be hit yet again with the foolishness. And Deputy Treasury, what's the face, Wally, baby, you ain't finna get off the hook either. You are the treasurer. So Wiley said the Biden administration had demonstrated its commitment to fiscal sustainability, including through over $1 trillion in deficit reduction measure included in a June agreement struck with Congress on raising the U.S. debt limit. And Biden proposed to reduce the deficit by nearly $2.5 trillion over the next decade. What's that supposed to do? What's that supposed to do? And not to mention, y'all on here every other week telling us that you need to send billions and billions here to other countries. For this, that, and the other, 4, 5, and 6. You need to spend billions here. But for other non-U.S. people. So you think we don't understand basic mathematics? Don't work that way. Okay? Treasury yields have soared this year on the expectation the Federal Reserve will keep monetary policy tight, as well as on the U.S.-focused fiscal concerns. Okay? The sharp rise in Treasury yields has increased pre-existing pressure on U.S. debt affordability, Moody's said. A Moody's downgrade could exacerbate fiscal concerns, but investors have said they are skeptical it would have a material impact on the U.S. bond market, seen as a safe haven because of its debt and liquidity. All right, so I'm not going to read the rest of this. I think you all get the gist of what was going on. Okay, so again, U.S. ain't got it. Okay, Moody's, they shady behind, followed the other credit rating agencies of downgrading their credit. All right, that in turn made JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America have a negative credit rating outlook as well. Okay. So just real quick, the update on the government shutdown that was scheduled to happen on the 17th, November 17th. So President Biden signed a continuous resolution for fiscal year 2024. It consists of two separate expiration dates for two separate sets of appropriation bills. The Senate cleared the measure late Wednesday night after the House passed the bill on Tuesday night. The first expiration date in the CR is January 19th, would apply to the programs covered by the agricultural, energy, water, military construction, VA, and transportation HUD bill. Okay, so in other words, they just kick the can down the road and they're funding things partially. Okay, so what, for 2 months? That only funded it for 2 months? The second expiration date, February 2nd, would apply to the programs covered by the Commerce, Justice, Science, Defense, Financial Services, General Government, Homeland Security, Interior Environment, Labor, HHS, Education, the Legislative Branch, and the State Foreign Operations bills. Besides extending appropriations, the measure also includes several policy extensions through January 19th for certain healthcare programs and a farm bill extension through the fiscal year 2024. The next few years will include several predictable fiscal policy deadlines that will force congressional action. Many of the deadlines could bring additional costs if Congress acts irresponsibly, or they could present an opportunity for Congress to reduce deficits. All right. So there you go. And that's right from the horse's mouth. Committee for Responsible Federal Budget. All right. So I'm not going to say that's from this because this could be an independent site. Nonetheless, all they did, the U.S. did from the November 17th shutdown was just piecemeal. They're funding their agencies in a piecemeal fashion. Okay, so you're just going to hear again averting another government shutdown. Okay, so again, in summary, what I am telling you all, we are in a full-blown recession. We have been since 2020, when that worldwide event happened. You know, starts with the C, ends with the D, has a V in it. All right. This particular recession includes this go round inflation, We're seeing that. And remember, the reason it's inflation is because of all of the ends that the U.S. government borrowed from Big Daddy, the Federal Reserve, which isn't a federal agency. It is a private institution. Okay, so that's why inflation happened. Okay. We also, in this particular recession, we have a housing bubble. Just like we did in 2008, okay, where housing is wildly overvalued. It's worse now than it was back in 2008, okay, and all of the bundling up of housing and selling it to Wall Street, what they call mortgage-backed securities. All of that is going to schedule to crash as well as folks start defaulting on the loans. Okay? Because now the housing market is pretty much starting to crack. All right? And inflation, certainly the rise in inflation rates certainly kicked that off. Okay. But folks can't afford it. You couldn't afford it when they was out there getting them loans, overbidding, which I never understood that. Having bidding wars on houses, 100,000 overvalue. Folks were out there like it was going to be the last thing on earth. They just had to have that house. All right. You had just regular investors swooping in, picking up properties, being that whole Airbnb market. Go look it up. It's essentially crashed. Okay. Not that it was a bad concept. It's actually a good concept. I actually like the concept. I actually used to kick it in here. All right. When you start lining up the costs, wait a minute, what? Now I could go stay in a hotel. You got me messed up. I'm not finna do all this Airbnb, people. Okay. So it kind of destroyed itself. All right. But on the back end of that, you had those investors rushing in. They were the cause, not the main cause, but they were a factor also in housing prices rising because they were in there bidding for those homes to turn around and, temporarily rent them out like a hotel. So that means they were paying overvalue for those homes. Okay. And then you had other big company investors, can we say BlackRock, swooping in to buy, hundreds of homes at a time to turn around and rent them out to the public. Okay. That also caused the price of housing to rise to the point now that new time homeowners, which more than likely would be the younger generation, they're priced out. Okay. Now, this is my opinion. Not trying to tell anybody what to do. Of course, do your due diligence, babies. Do what you need to do. All right. But in my opinion, they saved you from this fiasco. Okay. Because now you have a bunch of people holding assets that are upside down. All right. So they spent more than what they are worth. Okay. And you being just starting out in your career, whatever the case may be, you don't need to be upside down like that anyway. Okay. So you don't let nobody guilt you, baby, into owning no house, da 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 da. If the numbers don't add up, they don't add up. And at these interest rates, and the cost of these homes, baby, I'm telling you, in Amy's opinion, they don't add up. The math don't math for me. So what you are about to witness again is another huge housing crash. All right. Now remember, most people, they don't go out and just pay cash for a house. Okay, that's big boss. Okay. And although you have some people say don't do that, yeah, okay. Okay, I'm not trying to tell nobody what to do. But that's where you lay your head at. And if you want to go on and have your stuff paid off, baby, in case a rainy day happen, you still got a place to lay your head. Nah, I say that's a smart move. Okay? But that's a separate subject. Okay? Nonetheless, the chickens are coming home to roost. Okay? Airbnb, they're having issues, about to go bankrupt. Even like the car market sector, inventory is about to be built back up on the car market because the car prices had inflation as well. And now that the cost to borrow, meaning the interest rates, are up, that's what makes it more expensive for a car also. So now even car lots are starting to get a backup of inventory, and you look at the numbers and it looks like the repossession rates are going up, and it is being said in the housing market, come 2024, we're going to start seeing foreclosures. All right. So when you're seeing the foreclosures on the housing market, I want y'all to remember what we talked about, those mortgage-backed securities. So meaning all they do is lump up housing loans, and I'm talking to the banks when I say they, lump together housing loans, and they sell them as a group based on credit rating. Okay, so let's say you have 100 loans lumped together, and the credit rating of those particular homeowners are, let's say, 800. Okay, very good credit rating. So that means the likelihood of the homeowners in this particular investment portfolio not paying their mortgages is really, really low. So that's a safe investment. Okay, just giving you the definition of what mortgage-backed securities are. Okay, but if foreclosures are going up, that means those mortgage-backed securities are not a safe investment, and those who are holding those particular assets, they about to lose their shirt. They're going to start losing money. Okay, this is how all of this is a domino effect. Okay, so you're going to start hearing in 2024, foreclosures are rising. You're going to start hearing layoffs. You're going to start hearing recession. I think in 2024, they're going to finally admit that we are in a recession, although we've been in one. Okay, although layoffs have been happening. Okay, the tech industry kicked off layoffs. All right. So pay attention, family. I did want to give you an update of what's going on, because of course they're not talking about this in the mainstream media at all. All they give you are highlights. The Fed government about to shut down. None of the why it's about to shut down, what's going on about the behind the scenes, what's the true health of the economy, right? So did want to give you that update. I had something else to say. Child, I didn't forget. Oh, just the last thing. Remember, all of this is happening because there's still going to be a major financial reset. Okay, we've been talking about this for a couple years. So in my opinion, this particular impending collapse, it's gonna be a big one, and they're going to come back out of this with a new financial system, which is essentially still going to be the old financial system. Okay, but they're just going to put a new face on it. Okay, i.e. digital. All right, and I also want you all to understand the main reason we're having an influx of immigration. Most of the immigrants coming through are from Venezuela, okay, who's been having financial troubles for quite some time. Go look up that particular story, and they are a classic example of when your money is worthless. Okay, so that is the main reason we're seeing an influx of Venezuelans coming across the border. All right. Okay. Now, the backstory to that, like I've always said, and in my opinion, is because this is going to be a major reset across the board. So not only a financial reset, but also a reset and a shifting of population as well. Okay. All right. So we're going to be still paying attention on what's going on. You all pay attention as well. So when you see them on these mainstream media talking out the side of their neck, you will know what the deal is, and hopefully you can use this information to navigate accordingly in your life. Okay, the rule of thumb usually is if they're telling you one thing, you probably should do the opposite. Okay? But always, always, always do your own independent research and do it outside of mainstream media. They put the information out there, but they're not going to make it easy for you by sitting on the news talking like I'm talking. Okay? It's going to be other things you have to go to get this information. So start getting in practice of doing that, and you will be much more informed. All right. So with that said, I got to get out of here. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody that celebrate Thanksgiving. I got to get on my doggone self. This is Rhonda with WTUZ Radio Newscast. I am wishing you podcast, rather. Child, now I said newscast. Podcast. Wishing you all safe and warm on however you choose to celebrate, or if you choose to celebrate this particular holiday. So peace and love, family.